First of all, thank you all for joining. We just ask if you are not speaking, if you can put yourself on mute, that would be really helpful. My name is Meredith Hoskin, and I am president of the City of Alameda Democratic Club. We are the local chartered organization for the Democratic Party in the mighty community of Alameda, California, right next to San Francisco and Oakland. We are home to a lot of very savvy representatives and political influencers. So we're again, very happy to have everyone here to join us for our second second in a series of candidate forums that to help prepare voters for the upcoming California primary. So with that, we have a lot of special guests here today. So again, we're going to try and move as efficiently and productively as possible. We have put together a small sample of questions for the candidates. Thank you to those who emailed us beforehand. So what we're going to do is run through each office, introduce each participating candidate for that office, give them 2 minutes each, and then we'll ask 1 to 2 questions, giving each candidate an opportunity to give a 1-minute response. And the number of questions will just depend on the amount of candidates we have and the amount of time we have. All right, and then after this is actually an endorsement form for the City of Alameda Democratic Club. So after this, if you are an eligible voting member, that is someone who has attended a meeting in the last year, paid your 2026 dues, and lives, works, owns a business, studies, or has a connection to the Alameda community, you are eligible to vote for who your local Democratic Party wants to endorse. All right, and then I have my amazing colleague, Jen Hufflin-Whiff, who we are partnering on hosting this program. So she will be helping candidates keep time. So hopefully you can see her in the window. She will hold up a sign when there are 30 seconds left. And then she will give a big flag for when time is up. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started with our first office. We are pleased to welcome 2 candidates for the State Board of Equalization, District 2. And maybe the first candidate who does their introduction can give us a quick 10 to 15 second summary of what the State Board of Equalization does. So with that, we're going to go alphabetical. So I'm going to start with the incumbent, who is Sally Lieber. Sally, I'll turn it over to you for a 2-minute introduction.
Well, thank you so much for having us in tonight. We really appreciate everyone's participation. I currently serve as chair of the State Board of Equalization, and as a secondary effective chairing that group, I sit on the Franchise Tax Board as well. So the BOE oversees primarily property tax collection. It also acts as the assessor for multi-county entities like PG&E. And we oversee the alcohol beverage tax, tax on insurers, private rail car tax, and things like that. I primarily see my role as ensuring that there is an economic watchdog for taxpayers in California. We're the only elected tax body in the United States, and I think it does have a great value for Californians to have us present. So I am very thankful to be endorsed for re-election by the California Democratic Party, by the California Labor Federation, by the Sierra Club California, by Planned Parenthood California, and major labor organizations like the SEIU State Council. I'm also very honored to be endorsed by many of the Democratic electeds in Sacramento that represent Alameda County. including Liz Toro, Mia Banta, Rob Banta, Aisha Wahab, and Latifah Simon, who serves us in Congress now. So I want to thank you again for having us in, and I look forward to your questions and to an ongoing dialogue with folks who may have questions about tax matters where I can help connect them to the experts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then next, I'm going to turn it over to John with your 2-minute introduction.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is John Pimenthal, and I'm standing for the Board of Equalization. I have a background that includes having been raised in the California Central Valley, made my way to college in the Bay Area, went to UC Berkeley, worked up in Sacramento for a number of years where I led a number of interesting initiatives that focused on making our government work more effectively. I then went back to business school, got an MBA, and for the last 20 years, I've been developing renewable energy projects, wind, solar, on-site wastewater treatment systems, and most recently, a unique carbon dioxide removal system that was invented at Google and spun out. My background is more business oriented in that I have had a great deal of experience building infrastructure and actually figuring out how to get difficult things done. In the case of my public service, I was elected to the San Mateo County Board of Trustees for the Community College District. And there I led the effort to create free community college. So every every resident of San Mateo County is able to attend community college in our county now for free. And I believe that community college is the most effective investment that a government can make in social and economic equity. So I'd like to bring this same type of solutions mindset and thinking differently as to how to make the Board of Equalization more impactful and more effective in reducing the cost of living for Californians and making our tax system more fair. I have three things that I'd like to accomplish as a member of the board of Equalization. The first is to end the sales tax on food. I believe it's a regressive tax, and it will provide immediately relief for working families
I'm
by
so
ending the
sorry,
sales tax
John.
on food.
That's 2 minutes.
Thank you.
But we're about to ask a question, so you can incorporate more of your response into the response to that. So I know 2 minutes goes fast.
Thank you.
All right, we actually just have one question for the Board of Equalization District 2 candidates. So there's ongoing discussion about a potential wealth or billionaires tax in California. What role, if any, should the Board of Equalization play in implementing or overseeing such a policy, and what challenges do you foresee, and do you support it? I'm sure you guys haven't gotten this question yet. Let's start with John this time.
Great. Thanks very much. Well, that fits perfectly into finishing my first 2 minutes. So in addition to eliminating the sales tax on food, I'm actually opposed to the billionaires tax. I think it's poor public policy because it is a one-time revenue opportunity for what is an ongoing and permanent structural challenge, the deficit that exists between our revenues and our spending. Rather, I think we should pursue closing loopholes. And that's the second thing I'd like to pursue as a member of the Board of Equalization and work actively with the legislature to accomplish that. That includes ending the water's edge exemption that multinational corporations use to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, as well as ending the invest, borrow, die loophole that wealthy individuals can use to avoid paying tax on their stock positions that can achieve liquidity for all. Thank you, Sally, for your comment. I know groceries are not taxed currently. Cold groceries in packages at grocery stores are not taxed. However, hot food and delivered food, which is about half of our food spend, is taxed. And I believe that is a regressive tax. So by balancing that tax cut with the closing of loopholes, we actually will end up net positive in terms of gross revenues. The third thing that I would do is
I'm so sorry, John. We're out of time again.
that's all right.
Okay.
You got my point.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Sally, same question over to you. The billionaires tax, what role would Board of Equalization play in overseeing the policy, and do you agree with it?
Well, the Board of Equalization does not do either sales taxes or income type taxes. And so that would be administered by the Franchise Tax Board. I do believe that it's very necessary to get this measure to the ballot. I am personally collecting signatures for the wealth tax myself. I think it's a very, very important step. And no matter what we do, we have to address revenues coming in. And we can't make any more tax cuts for the wealthy. And frankly, working families do not get to go to restaurants in California. And the state has estimated that that would create around a $3 billion per year hole in our state budget. And we just can't afford to have a tax holiday for the French Laundry and other costly restaurants that working families don't get to partake in anyways. But the wealth tax, even though it's a one-time opportunity, I think it is a very important doorway to step through right now at this time. And I support SEIU, UHW in their quest to get this on the ballot and to see it passed.
Great. All right. Now, thank you both for joining. I know this was very short and sweet, but we really appreciate you joining, hearing more about your campaign. And thank you so much again. And we will circulate your, if it's okay, if you want to put contact information in the chat and for people to follow up with any questions, that would be great.
Great.
Thank you all for
so
your
much.
time.
Thank you. All right. Now moving on to our next office. The State Superintendents of Public Instruction. We're very lucky to have 3 candidates joining us for this office, starting with Nichelle Henderson, Richard Barrera, and Al, Assemblymember Al. There he is. Hello, Assemblymember. Thank you.
Hello, good evening.
Great. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started, starting with Richard Barrera, a 2-minute introduction. And watch for my colleague Jen Witt. She's going to hold up a sign for 30 seconds and when your time is up.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for making the time tonight. I'm Richard Barrera, and I am the president of the San Diego Unified School Board. I am in my 18th year on the board here in San Diego. And I also am senior policy advisor to our current state superintendent, Tony Thurmond, at the California Department of Education. And my work at CDE focuses on protecting our immigrant students and families, on promoting student wellness and reducing chronic absenteeism, as well as promoting affordable housing development for educators on school district property. And I'm proud of the work that we've done over 18 years in San Diego Unified. Today, among all large urban districts in the country, we rank #1 in both literacy and math on the nation's report card. And among the large urban districts in California, we're #1 in literacy, math, science, graduation rates, college and career readiness rates. And we've gotten there through a conscious strategy of rejecting this austerity world that public schools have lived in since Prop 13. We've invested heavily in our educators. We've improved salaries by 50% across the board. We provide fully paid family health benefits to our families. We're on track to provide affordable housing to 20% of our employees. And we've also gone to our voters 4 times, and they've invested in our schools. We have a larger facilities bond program in San Diego, $11.5 billion than the entire state's facilities bond program. And that record of investment in our students and our educators in our schools is what's led to the outcomes that we've been able to achieve. I'm proud to be endorsed by the California Teachers Association, by Tony Thurmond, our current state superintendent, and by school board members and educators up and down the state. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Richard. All right, next up, we will do Nichelle Henderson, your 2-minute introduction.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you this evening. I'm Nichelle Henderson. I am a career teacher, former middle school teacher, taught 6th grade math and science. And currently for the past 13 years, I have worked as a teacher educator in a teacher credentialing program out of Fresno State, where I work with new and pre-service teachers that are working towards completing their multiple subjects teaching credentials. So I teach TK through 6th grade teachers. And the superintendent of public instruction is not a legislator. The superintendent, although they push legislation, the superintendent of public instruction is not an observer of the work. The superintendent of public instruction is an overseer, is the person that provides guidance, the person that should have some, as a state constitutional officer, should have some lived experience in public school classrooms, because as we see too often through unfunded mandates and the disconnect between the legislation passed in Sacramento and the implementation on the ground level in our schools, we need someone that can see through that. We need someone that can look at the challenges that teachers face and the challenges that students face in our classrooms through the lens of righting wrongs and moving forward, in a way that we're centering student success. And as someone, I have a master's degree in education with an emphasis in teaching. I teach very well. So I can oversee and I can make sure that I'm working with school districts to create plans of actions to protect our undocumented and immigrant students, to really start to work to close the achievement gap and not just throw cooked spaghetti at a wall and hope it sticks, to really work with school districts to push their plans, but work with them to create plans of action to be successful. Our students can't function, they can't learn and thrive in overcrowded classrooms. Our teachers can't function in a classroom and teach our kids when they're one paycheck away from financial ruin. We've got to stop the system of social promotion. We've got to revise and reform the way that we test our students, because we're the 4th largest economy and ranking somewhere in the 32nd percentile of success, considering the fact that we're in the 12th percentile of student spending. There is a disconnect. And as a math teacher, the math just isn't mapping. And so as the superintendent of public instruction, it is my full intention as we work to fully fund our schools is to correct those absences.
Thank you so much, Nichelle. I know those 2 minutes go really fast. Thank you. All right, and from there, I'm going to turn it over to Assemblymember Muratsuchi.
Thank you very much, Meredith, and good evening, Democrats. I'm Al Muratsuchi, and I'm running to be your next state superintendent of public instruction. I am a classroom educator. I teach government and civics at my local community college. Proud member of the American Federation of Teachers, Local 1388. Former president of my local school board, a public school parent, and a California Assembly member for the last 12 years, including former chair of the Assembly Education Committee. I'm running because I'm passionate about fighting for equal educational opportunity for all. As a son of immigrants, product of public schools, and a first-generation college graduate, I know firsthand that public education is the key to the American dream. I'm the only candidate in this race with the combined experience of classroom education, local school board governance, public school parent, and statewide education policy leadership. As former chair of the Assembly Education Committee and as a California Assembly member, I have a strong track record of fighting for our schools. I've delivered increased school funding, reduced class sizes, provided more funding for arts and music education, fought for vocational education to teach real-world job skills for all, expanded preschool for all, fought for after-school programs, free school meals for all, and fought to deliver funding for mental health and well-being. When Trump started sending immigration raids into our communities, I wrote the law to keep ICE out of our schools. when Trump started banning books. I worked with Equality California and the ACLU to fight book banning. And I was the lead author of Proposition 2 in 2024, the $10 billion statewide school bond measure, and to fix and upgrade our schools. I'm proud to be endorsed by the California Federation of Teachers, the California School Employees Association, by superintendents and principals and school leaders throughout the state of California, represented by the Association of California School Administrators, and endorsed by the California Labor Federation. I have a 100% Planned Parenthood voting record, 100% Equality California voting record, and I'd be honored to be able to earn the endorsement of the City of Alameda Democratic Club. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. We're going to ask two questions, one from the club, and then the second one, we have a special guest, Judy, who is the head of the Alameda Teachers Union, will ask a question as well. So the first question, in the face of a state budget deficit and uncertainty at the federal level, how will you ensure California maintains its commitment to public education? What specific education priorities would you protect, and what, if anything, would you be willing to scale back? So you each have 1 minute to respond, and we'll start with Nichelle Henderson on this one.
Sorry, my keyboard was up and I couldn't get to my volume button. Thank you for that question. So whenever we're dealing with the deficit of any sort financial across our state, the first thing we do is start to cut education and force schools to cut programming and lay off teachers. And what happens is those deficits impact student outcomes. There are a number of things that we can do in our schools to protect students' ability to learn and their access to a quality education. That requires funding, but does not force us to cut back on services for our students. You know, our commitment to education in our state is to provide quality education, to have fully trained, supported, credentialed teachers, to have programming that supports language development, that supports literacy across the curriculum. And so as superintendent, what I would do is work with our schools to make the most of our budgets, our current budgets, and continue to fight to fully fund our schools as best we can by increasing our Prop 98 funds and revising the way that we fund our schools in terms of our funding formula, move it away from a student attendance-based formula to more of an enrollment-based. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we will move to Assemblymember Muratsuchi, or Al.
Yeah, just call me Al. Yes, so number one, I'm fighting to make sure that we fully fund Proposition 98. The governor right now is withholding about $5.6 billion in Proposition 98 funding. He is not fully funding Proposition 98, and so I'm as a California legislator, I'm fighting to make sure that we deliver those funds. Beyond that, I mean, for years I've been leading the fight to increase, to fully fund our schools, and especially for those of you living in Alameda, I think I've been fighting to increase the base grant of the local control funding formula, which would as I like to say, a rising tide lifts all boats, and making sure that all school districts benefit from increased school funding. Last but not least, we need to make sure that we not only continue to tax the wealthy in the state of California through the extension of Proposition 30, Proposition 55, to make sure that we sustain current levels of education funding, but to go above and beyond that. And I look forward to conversations taking place to revisit the split role to make sure that corporations pay their fair share to support our schools.
Great, thank you. And Richard, over to you. 1
Yeah,
minute.
so first of all, we need to be clear what our schools actually need. And from our own experience in our district, and also from research that we've seen consistently, including research that was done by Stanford years ago, we need about 25% more per pupil funding in California for our students and our educators to have what they need. And what that translates into specifically is our class sizes need to be lower. Our K to 3 class sizes should really be about 15 to 1. Right now, they're averaging 25 to 1. Our counseling ratios are about a third of what they need to be to meet national standards. We don't have enough special education teachers, and we don't have enough para-educator special education aides. So we know what it takes actually to improve student outcomes, and we know what it costs to improve student outcomes. And how do we get there? It's really at 3 levels. At the local level, local school boards have decisions to make about what they prioritize. And we have made a conscious decision in San Diego not to build up our central office, not to hold money in big reserves, not to outsource services, but to invest that money directly in the classroom, directly in our educators, so that we do have lower ratios and better compensation for educators. At the level of the state budget, Al touched on it. And Nichelle talks about the disconnect between what we see in Sacramento and what school districts actually need. It's the withholding of the $5.6 billion that Al mentioned, but it's also the way that the state continues to label money as one time that needs to be ongoing. And then it's going to the voters with things like re-upping Prop 55, getting rid of the split roll on Prop 13, and going for a wealth tax. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. All right, I am going to, there she is, Judy Ganley with our local Alameda Teachers Union.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing me to be here this evening with you. I have the great honor and privilege to bring you question number 2 from our Alameda Education Association. We know that skilled educators with many years of experience are leaving the teaching profession, and it is harder and harder to find qualified individuals to replace them from California's rural areas to its inner cities. How will you, in your role as State Superintendent of Public Instruction, work to bring the next generation of educators, and I want to specifically say educators of color, into the classroom and encourage them to develop their practice so they come to see teaching as a career?
All right, we'll start with Al on this one. And just remember, we only have 1 minute for responses. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Judy, for the question. Again, I've been leading the fight to support our teachers in the California legislature. In recent years, I've been working with our labor partners to fight. I've introduced Assembly Bill 477 last year, and before that, Assembly Bill 938, the Fair Pay for Educators Act, to increase teacher pay as well as classified pay by 50% over 10 years statewide. I also recognize that many teachers, they say, beyond pay, getting a fair wage, they talk about reducing class sizes, to make sure that class sizes are sustainable. Special education teachers are dealing with unsustainable caseloads. To do that, we need to increase statewide funding so that we can attract and retain more teachers, hire more teachers to reduce class sizes. Last but not least, I've been leading the fight to reduce the financial obstacles to become teachers. Last year, I delivered $300 million in state budget funding to pay student teachers, because we know that that's often a financial obstacle for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm so sorry for the time. I know it goes fast. All right, now we're going to go to Richard Barrera to answer the question. Again, just 1 minute.
So Judith, I appreciate the question. And the part of San Diego that I represent is, working families, but students who are struggling with a lot of needs that they're coming into the classrooms with. And yet we have many, many schools in my district where teachers who have had the opportunity to post and bid and go, to sort of the wealthier part of town decide to stay in their schools. And the reasons that that happens is because they feel like they're part of a community of educators that they can actually make a difference with their students. Shared governance has always been very important so that teachers actually who have the best ideas of what their students need are listened to. Push back against the constant testing and the judgment that it's standardized testing that determines whether you're a good teacher or not. And of course, the working conditions, which include the fact that when we adequately compensate our teachers and when we keep our class sizes low, as we know in the profession, 50% of teachers leave after their first 5 years. In our district, 93% of teachers stay. And they stay in an expensive place like San Diego because they are in an environment where they can be effective, where they're listened to, and where we invest in our educators. And that's, I think, what attracts young people into the teaching profession, that I can actually go and make a difference, and I can raise a family, and I can afford to live in the community that I teach.
Thank you very much, Richard. All right, Nichelle, Henderson. These are all great answers, by the way.
Well, this is what I do in my day job. I work in the teacher credentialing program where I work with new and pre-service teachers working towards their multiple subjects teaching credentials. And the challenges that they face are there are a number of hoops that they have to jump through to become credentialed teachers. And then there is no work, or they are not able to find work in the areas that they live. And so the challenge that we have is, especially in rural areas where there is often a pay disparity and opportunity, rural areas have a difficult time attracting the teachers that would love to come to that area because of the pay disparity and opportunity. And so as superintendent, what I would do, because the superintendent sits on the Commission for Teacher Credentialing, work on revising how we get people into the profession in terms of bringing teachers of color into the profession. In my job, what we do in my program is we recruit Black males from HBCUs in the South and bring them into California and get them into residency programs where they're learning to become teachers while they're teaching, making a difference in their schools and getting paid. And so what we need to do really is create more residency programs for our teacher preparation programs, pay our teachers better, and make sure that we're offering training and opportunities for these teachers, because we don't have a teacher shortage in terms of folks that want to be teachers. We have a shortage of opportunity, and the superintendent of public instruction has a beautiful opportunity to really
that's time.
for teachers. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, all three of you. Again, I know this was not as much time, but we know you all have very busy schedules. So if there's any information you would like to leave with our group in the chat, please feel free to do so. And thank you so much again for all three of you joining us. Public education is so important in the city of Alameda. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so next we are moving to Lieutenant Governor, and I recognize that we're running just a couple minutes behind. So let's go ahead and spotlight our candidates for Lieutenant Governor. I see Janelle. Is Oliver Ma on the line?
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Okay. Spotlight you. Hi. And then Michael Tubbs. I know he was going to try and sneak on. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. In the interest of time, thank you both for joining us, and we'll ping the third candidate. But thank you all for coming. We're gonna do each candidate do a 2-minute introduction, and then, oh, hi. And then we'll ask you 2 questions and we'll give each candidate 1 minute to respond. And please, please, please watch my colleague Jen Heflin-Witt. She's going to be helping you keep time. Hold a fancy post-it for 30 seconds left, and she'll hold a big X for when the time is up. All right. All right. Well, with that, I'll turn it over to start us off with Janelle Kellman. Thank you.
Great. Well, good evening, Democrats, and good evening to Michael and Oliver as well. Nice to see you guys. My name is Janelle Kellman, and I'm running to be the next Lieutenant Governor of California. My theory of the case is very simple. I am running because my experience matches the job description, and because I have a track record of results. Now, I love California like all of us. It's why we're here. But I am concerned, like many of us, about the rising cost of living. And we need to make more progress on the things that are driving up the cost of living, like wildfire prevention, insurance, electricity costs, and housing. We need leaders who are proactively planning rather than reacting year to year. And what makes me different and uniquely qualified is that my experience matches the job. So you probably all know Lieutenant Governor is the only statewide office that serves on the governing body of all 3 levels of public higher education. It is also a climate and ocean role. I would serve on the Ocean Protection Council, the Coastal Commission, and the State Lands Commission. And I would serve as the chair of the California Commission on Economic Development. So I'm an environmental and land use lawyer. I'm a small business owner. I'm the former mayor of Sausalito. I love local and regional government. I've served as a planning commissioner, in fact, for 10 years, and I'm on our disaster preparedness committee. I have deep urban planning and local as well as regional experience. I've worked on housing elements, disaster preparedness plans, and long-range infrastructure planning. And I have a global perspective because I run a global nonprofit focused on helping communities prepare for risks like fires, floods, and dealing with insurance companies. I work very closely with the United Nations Ocean Conference and with the U.S. Embassy in Paris. My story, I think, is the American dream. My grandfather was an immigrant. He escaped the pogroms in Russia, came through Ellis Island, and settled in New York City. My father, who's the eldest of 3 boys, was the first in our family to graduate from college. I have real examples of action in California. I've governed with homeless encampments. I've worked with FEMA and Cal OES to get funds into my community. I've navigated insurance debacles. I'll pause there. 2 minutes goes by very quickly, and thank you all for your time.
Yes, it does. Thank you. All right, on to Oliver Ma.
Hi, good evening. My name is Oliver, and my family and I moved to the US when I was 7. And growing up, my parents did not speak English, and so I was the one advocating for them, making phone calls, filling out forms. And to keep on fighting for them in my community, I went to Berkeley for undergrad, I went to Harvard for law school, and then came to the ACLU of Southern California to work as a civil rights lawyer, focused specifically on defending immigrant families. In a lot of ways, that was my dream job. I got to work on so many of the issues that my family faced growing up. But when Trump took office, as you can probably guess, a lot of things changed. The very first immigration raid in the entire country happened in Kern County, Bakersfield, where I was working, and they came through and they rounded up hundreds of farm workers. My team and I, we sue and we actually win. By April, we won an injunction in federal court protecting the entire Central Valley from illegal immigration raids. About 10 million people were protected under that order. But Trump and Border Patrol did not care. They kept the raids going, and it really showed me that a lot of the traditional guardrails of our democracy are no longer there, and California has to step up. The California Lieutenant Governor is president of the state Senate, where I would be able to co-sponsor legislation. And I want to fight for 3 in particular. Number 1, I want to shut down these for-profit ICE prisons. Number 2, I want to hold ICE agents accountable for breaking the law, like shooting moms and nurses and trespassing and assaulting people. And number 3, I'm a volunteer with the Kern County Rapid Response Network. I want California to step up and fund these rapid response networks that are protecting immigrants all across the state. Before I went to the ACLU, I worked for a few years in eviction defense, representing working families, representing tenants, organizing tenants unions, and the cost of housing is absolutely too high in California. So on the State Commission for Economic Development, housing justice and lowering the cost of housing is my top priority. Now, on these public education boards, I want to make our UCs tuition free, UCs, Cal States, and community colleges tuition free. I want to make housing more affordable for students, and I want to divest our universities from genocide and apartheid in Palestine because our tax dollars are much better used investing in kids here than bombing children abroad. So, looking forward to meeting with you guys. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you. Michael Tubbs, over to you.
Good evening. It's good to see you all. My name is Michael Tubbs. I'm the former mayor of Stockton, California, former city council member of Stockton, California, and now running for lieutenant governor of California. Precisely because the status quo isn't working. And yes, Donald Trump is bad, but him being bad is the floor, but not the ceiling in terms of what California needs for leadership to actually move the city forward. When I was elected mayor of Stockton, California, I was elected the same day Donald Trump was elected president the first time. So everything I've accomplished politically happened in the context similar to this one. I was a mayor with a 3 Republican, 3 Democrat city council in a city that declared bankruptcy. And then that was 4 years. We went from bankruptcy to second most fiscally healthy city, finding ways to raise revenue and also finding ways to make sure we're accountable for the revenue we raise. We reduced homicides by 40%. We led the state of California in declining officer-involved shootings. We had to fight against then Attorney General Jeff Sessions and ICE, who kept threatening to come to Stockton to take my police funding. We did the first guaranteed income program in this country's history that's now been implemented by over 100 cities. We I created a universal scholarship program so that every single young person who graduates from a Stockton public school is guaranteed a trade scholarship, 2-year scholarship, or 4-year scholarships. And I share that because I think in this moment in particular, California, it's important to have leaders who have led in times of crisis. I was the mayor during COVID. I was the mayor during the Black Lives Matter protest. Times of conflict, times of controversy, times of crisis aren't foreign to me. There aren't things I've studied or read or things I've lived and experienced. And prior to all that, I was born and raised in Stockton, California. So many of the issues facing the state are issues that are deeply personal to me. I've been homeless. I've slept in hotels. My mom was 16 when she had me. My father was still incarcerated. And that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor, to make sure this fourth largest economy works for everyone, to make sure we build the housing that students and workers and everyone needs to stay in California, to make sure we're not a state that's run just by tech billionaires, but a state in which working people, that folks that raised me and made me who I am, have an opportunity to participate, stay, and thrive. And that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor and would love to have your support.
Thank you. Thank you, all 3 of you. All right, we have 2 questions. First, as a voting member of the UC Board of Regents, how would you approach increasing access to the UC system, both by addressing affordability and considering potential expansion? And that comes from a lot of families who live here in Alameda have put their kids through the public school system, want them to go through UCs, and there's a concern about, the admittance rate. So, and we'll start with Oliver Ma on that.
Yes, our UCs were tuition free for more than 100 years. And that changed with Proposition 13, which I don't have enough time to get too deep into. But basically, over the course of Proposition 13, as property taxes for corporate landlords have gotten lower and lower and lower, our UCs became less and less funded and therefore less and less affordable. I had friends when I went to a UC, I had friends who were living out of their cars. And when you're living out of your car, you're not able to focus as much on studying. You're trying to just to make it through. And so my top priorities on our UC, Cal State, and Community College Board of Regents is to exempt corporations from Proposition 13 so they pay their fair share so that we can make our public education system affordable and create the conditions for students to thrive. I also think we need to make housing a whole lot more affordable. That's going to take building more housing, yes, but that's also going to take taking on the corporate landlords who own way too many homes in California. When I went to Berkeley, I lived up in an attic. And every time the city of Berkeley health inspector came through, I had to pull up the ladder up into my attic because people weren't supposed to be living where I was living. That is not how California's future generations should be living. And so we got to make housing more affordable. We got to make sure cost is not a barrier of entry to our public education system.
Great. And then over to Michael Tubbs, 1 minute.
Yeah, I've been endorsed by both YIMBY Action and California YIMBY because the lieutenant governor has to be a champion of housing, particularly for students and for workers. And we know the biggest cost, the driver of cost outside of tuition is the cost of housing at these universities, as Oliver just explained. As a regent on the UC Community College Board, those are huge land-owning institutions that could build housing by right. So as a trustee, my first, second, third priority would begin those every school in the system to build the housing that students need and housing that's affordable to students. Number two, we have to have a tuition freeze. The fact that tuition has risen every 5% every year for the past 3 years is unacceptable. So I think we start there and figure out, like I did in Stockton, ways to make it so we get back to what the People's University was supposed to be, a path for economic mobility, a path that's affordable, a path where people could get world-class education, not be overburdened by debt. And then when I was mayor of Stockton, some of the work I did was to make sure that we built another CSU, that we haven't built a CSU at Cal State University in many, many years. Now continue that fight and continue that advocacy, and hopefully it will be in the Central Valley, because Stockton's the largest city in this state and the second largest in this country without a public institution of higher learning.
Thank you. And Janelle Kellman.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so over the last weekend, I was talking with my cousin's daughter. She applied to 30 different schools. She didn't get into any UCs and is now going to Maryland, although there's a UC Maryland, so apparently that makes it easier to transfer. So let me say three quick things. I think it's about affordability, it's about expansion, it's about the transfer system. So I would treat access as both an affordability question and a capacity question. And we need tuition and aid policies that are predictable and fair, but we also need more pathways and more seats for Californians. On affordability, families need predictability, not surprise tuition spikes. And I think the UC's tuition stability plan is valuable because it keeps tuition flat for each cohort, but affordability is bigger than tuition alone. As my colleagues have said, we have to focus on housing, food, transportation, and time to get that degree. On expansion, access can't just mean competition for a fixed number of seats at a few elite campuses. UCLA and Cal have much different acceptance rates than what you see at UC Merced. And then the job opportunities are much different because of the job market. And so we need to make sure that we're focusing on that. And that means more seats for Californians, stronger transfer routes, and investment in all campuses so we can absorb the growth. And finally, I just have to talk about transfers because this is one of the best access tools that we have. Community college, in fact, of the UC Berkeley students, 29% actually started at community college. It's one of California's most important engines of opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, second question, a pretty hot topic around here, the governor's race. As you all know, the Democratic field running for governor is pretty crowded to the point where 2 Republicans are leading in the polls. We don't expect you to make your selection on a candidate on this call, but what are your thoughts about the race, and what do you think should be done so that we ensure we do not have a Republican governor? And we will start with Michael Tubbs.
Yeah, no, I think the voters have to coalesce around the candidate in terms of who's best going to meet the moment we have in California. We know the next governor has to be someone that hopefully works well with Michael Tubbs as lieutenant governor, but someone who has the governing experience, the expertise, the California values, and the track record of actually getting things done. I don't think folks should drop out. I believe in democracy. I think having a big, messy fight is healthy for us to really get focused on the issues that matter for Californians. So that's my view on the governor's race. I trust the voters of California to make the right choice in all the races, the lieutenant governor's race and the governor's race. And I think that it's an awesome opportunity for us to actually have the power to elect our next leader. It's not a coronation. It's not the field has not been cleared. That we're having a real debate of ideas and personalities and records, and more to come in next month. And I'm excited about working with whoever that winner is to build a California where everyone can afford to live, to build a California where the economy is working not just for the few but for the many, and to build a California that continues to invest in its public system of higher education so the next generation has pathways to economic mobility as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I've lost track of my order. Let's go to Janelle Kellman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Toni Atkins, before she dropped out, said we have an embarrassment of riches. She's right. We do. We do have an embarrassment of riches. I mean, Betty Yee did so well at the Democratic convention, but isn't polling super well at the public opinion polls. I think it's a warning sign for Democrats. We have a crowded Democratic field, voter frustration, affordability, and quality of life, and a top 2 system that can punish fragmentation. And for me, this is not a time for complacency or inside baseball. I think California politics has been driven by the machine, and we've seen a lot of inside baseball and moving people up through the ranks. And this is the time for generational change. That is what this is telling us. We need new, loud, and bold leadership. People are ready to do the job on day one. And so I think Democrats need to stop assuming that party registration is enough. We want serious talk on cost of living, housing, energy bills, public safety, wildfire, education. And we need to recognize the structural risk of the top two primary because we really do have this concern. I know some people are talking about maybe in the future there'd be a slate between a lieutenant governor and a governor. There are lots of things I think that need to happen, including campaign finance reform. And there are different ways to measure somebody's success. But like Michael, I agree. I think folks should continue through, let the voters decide. That's what democracy is about.
Thank you. All right. Now, Oliver, to you.
The first candidate I ever voted for was Bernie Sanders for president, and I'm actually, to be frank, not too concerned about us having a Republican governor because I trust the Democratic Party to do the behind the scenes things to coalesce around one or two Democrats and beat out the Republicans. But what I'll say is I am not too excited about any of our candidates for governor on the Democratic side even. And the one quirk about the lieutenant governor position is every time the governor is out of state, the lieutenant governor becomes the acting governor, whether it's for 2 hours or for 2 days. And in that position, I would be able to sign legislation, veto legislation, appoint judges, issue pardons. And that gives the lieutenant governor the ability to be a significant thorn on the side of any governor. And I plan to use that as a bargaining chip. Hopefully, it is a governor who shares the vision that many of us have here of a California for working people and not for corporate interests. But if it is not, I intend to be a very strong advocate and demand some very hard bargains out of this governor.
Thank you all. Those were all very nice, honest answers. So, well, thank you three. We really appreciate you coming and talking to us about your run for lieutenant governor. If you have any follow-up information, contacts, or links, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, we will move over to Insurance Commissioner. We have two, potentially three candidates joining for that. Starting with State Senator Ben Allen, Patrick Wolff. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
And Jane Kim. Hi. Thank you all for joining. I know you have very busy schedules, so appreciate you making the time. We're going to start off with 2-minute introductions from each candidate before we turn it over to 2 questions. So I will start with Senator Allen.
Well, nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate this opportunity. And I just want to thank all you fellow Democrats for your work right now during this crazy time in American history. I'm in Sacramento right now, where we're working really hard to try to make sure that California remains the vanguard of the resistance, using all tools that we have to push back on all the madness. I'm someone who's represented portions of Los Angeles now for over a decade in the state legislature. I've been a big champion for consumer protections, for environmental protections, environmental justice, for campaign transparency and political reform. I've been ranked #1 in the legislature my entire time there by the California Clean Money Campaign for my commitment to political reform and ethics and transparency. I'm also someone who represents a portion of the fire zone that just impacted Los Angeles just last year. And I got a chance to see the dysfunction of the insurance system up close and personal as people were getting so screwed by insurance companies in ways large and small. I'm somebody who ended up taking on the insurance industry through legislation, trying to force them to increase the percentages of payouts in the wake of total loss for contents coverage. We were successful. It was really difficult. We're coming back with many more bills this year to create on transparency, consumer protections, and all sorts of things to encourage better and to demand better behavior of the industry. I'm proud to have the support of incredible Democratic leaders like Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla, California Environmental Voters, our California Federation of Teachers, and our professional firefighters, the Sierra Club, wonderful labor unions and Democratic clubs up and down the state. The vast majority of the Democrats in the legislature, including folks like Jesse Arreguín and others who represent you, Aisha Wahab as well. in the state Senate. And so I'd be so honored to have the support of this wonderful club. I went to law school at Berkeley, just up the road. I've got a number of friends who actually live in Alameda now, and I know your wonderful community, and would love to have your support.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I completely forgot to mention that my colleague Jen Heflin-Witt is in the window, and she will show a sticker when you have 30 seconds left, and she will show a big fancy X when it's time.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to actually Jane Kim. We're going to do this alphabetically.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. My name is Jane Kim, and hello to everyone in Alameda County. It's great to see you all and a lot of familiar faces. I am running also for California Insurance Commissioner to oversee this $3.3 trillion industry. And by the way, this is an industry that is doing exceedingly well. It is property and casualty insurance industry alone made $170 billion in 2024, with its top 10 CEOs making $391 million. I want to make insurance work for everyday people, not for billionaire corporations. And we live in a state where actually many of us are required to have insurance to drive to work, to qualify for a mortgage, to open a small business. And so for that very reason, we must make insurance affordable and available to us all. I am running to really propose some big ideas on how we can transform insurance to make it work for us. One, I'm proposing a single payer home disaster insurance program that guarantees coverage to homeowners. And instead of having our premiums go to returns from our premiums go to shareholders, we would actually invest it back into our communities in resiliency and infrastructure. Second, I want to expand our already existing low-cost nonprofit auto insurance program. And then finally, I want to write the plan to make Medicare for children a reality here in California. I also want to actually manage this office to enforce and regulate this industry, to do what it is, what its mission is to do, which is to actually protect us and our assets. But many of us are afraid to use this, even though it's a service that we pay for, because we know we'll get penalized for using that service. One strategy that the insurance industry has to create profits is by actually not paying valid claims. So deny, delay, and underpay valid claims. I want them to pay you interest when they do that, to create financial disincentives from that practice that we see across the board. Oh, my time is up. I look forward to answering more questions.
Great. Thank you so much. And then over to Patrick Wolff.
Hi, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Patrick Wolff. I'm also running for insurance commissioner. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I am not an elected politician. I've never run for elected office before. And this is the only elected office that I intend to run for if I am, in fact, elected insurance commissioner. Because my campaign is based on a fairly radical idea, which is the person who is in charge of regulating insurance should be somebody who actually knows insurance, should be actually someone who actually has 25 years of business and financial experience with insurance. So early in my career, I spent 4 years building an auto and home insurance brokerage business at a major bank. And then for the last 20 years, I've been a financial analyst, analyzing and investing in companies and markets, including insurance. I've analyzed insurance balance sheets. I've analyzed insurance markets. I've worked with insurance customers. I've worked with insurance companies and insurance markets. As I said, I am a lifelong Democrat, and for the last decade, I've been very deeply involved in state and local politics. I live in San Francisco, but the reason that I am running is because I believe this is the best way that I can serve you and all the people of California. Very briefly, my ideas are addressing the property and casualty crisis insurance crisis that we have in California, center around three big ideas. First is holding insurance companies accountable. That means doing a much better job of regulating the behavior, the market conduct of insurance companies. And I have a set of policies on my platform. One idea that I feel very strongly about is the Department of Insurance actually collects information about how well insurance companies have paid out claims, but the insurance company lobby has lobbied to keep that data anonymous, and I want to make it public and empower customers by having it. Briefly, the other two big pillars of my ideas are increasing choice and competition and improving transparency. I'll stop there. I see the big X. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all three of you. All right, we have two questions. First, as you know, Alameda is an island community and we are at risk of sea level rise. So a lot of us worry about the impacts of climate. As California homeowners, we see some facing rising premiums, and insurance companies even pulling back from high-risk areas. What specific actions would you take as an insurance commissioner to ensure coverage remains both available and affordable, especially as climate risk increases? And I'm going to start with Jane Kim.
So when we're in a for-profit driven insurance marketplace and risk is increasing, what we're seeing as the way that this for-profit industry addresses risk is in a race to cancel as many of what they consider their sick homes and their homes with pre-existing conditions as possible. And we see this in states where there's far less regulation in California, like in Texas and in Florida. So this is a problem that we're seeing across the board. So there's a couple of things. This office is vested authority via Prop 103, which was passed by the voters, to one, license every insurance company that gets to do business in California, a state that represents 40 million people and 1 out of every 8 American. And it gets to determine rate increases and make sure that they are neither inadequate or excessive, so they are solvent to pay those claims. So one of the big levers that this office has is in licensing who gets to do business here. And I don't think we leverage that power enough. So one thing is I want to stop insurance companies from cherry picking which services that it wants to provide. If they provide auto insurance in your zip code, they have to provide home insurance in your zip code. And keep in mind, we are 12% of the auto market for the insurance industry and 10% of homeowner industry. So I'm
sorry, that's time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I missed you down there, Jennifer. Okay.
That's okay.
And I completely forgot to say that these are 1-minute responses to the questions.
Okay.
So apologies on our end as well. Patrick Wolff.
Hi, thanks very much. I'll try to keep my answer under 1 minute. So there's actually, I think, this is a very good example of a difference of opinion, because I think the problem is not that we should be keeping companies out of California. I think we should be making it much easier for companies to come into California and do a much better job in terms of regulating their behavior. So in order for an insurance market to work well, you need to have insurance companies providing lots of choice, lots of competition, so that they're slicing and dicing the risk in different ways. And when I ran an auto insurance brokerage business, I saw the advantage of this. I saw when customers had many different companies competing for their business, where the companies would price the risk very differently, and the customers would get the best deal. But it's super, super important to hold the insurance companies accountable, making sure that claims are paid fairly, making sure that coverage is adequate, making sure that the terms are transparent. I see the big red X. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then Ben Allen.
Whoops, there we go. Sorry. So, in the end of the day, the insurance commissioner's role is to be a watchdog for the public. It's somebody who is in fact, the Department of Insurance was set up to be under Proposition 103 to be an advocacy department, probably arguably the largest consumer advocacy organization department in the country. And we need somebody in this position who is passionate about trying to protect consumers, who's going to stand up for people, who's going to be really focused on ensuring that they're pursuing an agenda that is really focused on ensuring broad coverage and lower rates. Obviously, you can't just wave a magic wand and demand all these folks to insure everybody all over the state. But at the end of the day, if we're putting in the investments to reduce risk and make our communities more resilient, that's what Proposition 4 that I wrote was all about. We can then, I think, ask of the insurance industry that they provide concomitant reductions in benefits and available and accessible insurance. So ultimately, it's about having somebody in there who is really open to and engaged in all the climate-related challenges around the state, and who's just bird dogging every single place, whether it's sea level rise, atmospheric rivers, flooding,
Sorry,
or
that's
fire.
time.
Sorry.
Thank you. Those were all great answers. Thanks. All right, second question, based on some previous people who have served the office. Have any of you taken any donations from the insurance industry? And if so, how will you balance holding insurance companies accountable while also maintaining a stable, competitive insurance market? And we will start with Patrick Wolff on that.
Sure. So I'm not taking any money from insurance companies. I'm pretty sure that all of us would say the same thing. And in addition to which, I will not take any corporate gifts in office. I haven't taken any corporate gifts. Nobody's given me any corporate gifts or offered me any corporate gifts at this point, but I won't take any corporate gifts in office. And I don't plan to run for any other elected office. So those are the three pledges that I've made that I feel are very important to establish myself as someone who's really firmly on the side of the customer. And again, quite frankly, I think all of us would agree, however we really make that clear, I think we're all going to agree on that this is a job where you regulate for the benefit of the customer. I do think it's unfortunate that the current insurance commissioner has lost some credibility with the public, regardless of whether one thinks that's warranted or not. I think it's very, very important for the next insurance commissioner to make very clear, both in fact and through signaling communication, that you're really on the side of the customer. Thanks.
Thank you. I have lost my order. I'm sorry. I'll go to Ben Allen next on this one.
Yeah, thank you so much. I too am not taking any insurance money. I think it's really important for folks to know that that the person in this position is totally free of any potential influence from the industry, given the important regulatory position that it holds, the power that it holds over the industry. I've also had a long-standing policy of not taking any fossil fuel money. I mean, a whole variety of progressive industries, because from my perspective, we need people in office who are really independent of some of the big polluters. And one of the many things that I'm doing right now is I'm involved with a bill that would provide some additional opportunities for us to go after the fossil fuel industry for their role in helping to exacerbate climate risk. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've been number one in the legislature from the California Clean Money Campaign. They've ranked me a California Clean Money Campaign champion every single session I've been in the legislature. That's now 5 sessions, because of my commitment to transparency and political reform. So, I'm somebody who's been really committed to ethics issues in politics for a long, long time, and certainly.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Jane Kim.
I am refusing to take any insurance money, and I've never accepted any insurance money or money from their executives. I also am not taking any dollars from fossil fuels and their executive, and I'm also refusing corporate PAC money. And this is reflected in the endorsements that I've gotten in this race. I'm really proud to have earned the endorsement of some of the largest unions in our state: SEIU California, California Teachers Association, the National Union of Healthcare Workers, the United Domestic Workers, and also the endorsement of my former boss, who really started the corporate-free or popularized the corporate-free candidacy, Senator Bernie Sanders, along with Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis and Controller Malia Cohen. And our campaign is really dependent on individual small dollar grassroots campaign. And we will be running a field campaign throughout the state to get our message out about single payer home disaster insurance and low cost nonprofit auto insurance. I think we can truly transform how this industry is run here in California, because the current system is not a healthy market. We're in a hostage situation, and part of the office role is to help us reimagine how we can better serve insurance in the state.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, 3. We really appreciate you joining us today. If you have any contact information or follow-up information, feel free to put it in the chat. and best of luck on the rest of campaign. Onward to June 2nd. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, really quickly, as we are pulling our candidates for state treasurer up, if you look in the chat, our membership committee has posted a sign-in sheet so that you can get credit for attendance today. And then some of our board members have also posted a link to a resolution that we will be discussing once we wrap up the forums, if you want to give it a quick look. Was Anna Caballero?
She's not on. So I think if you want to go ahead, I'll keep an eye out for her and I'll add her when she gets here.
Yeah, I know she was running or she was coming over from something else. So hopefully she joins soon. All right, with that, we are lucky to have candidate Tony Vazquez running for state treasurer. And Tony, I will turn it over to you for a 2-minute introduction. And then we actually only have one question after this. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Tony Vazquez, and want to thank the Alameda Democratic Club for giving me this opportunity. I was pretty much raised here in Southern California. Been a lifetime Democrat. Started my career here in Santa Monica as a local elected official, and then at the city council level, then went up to the Santa Monica mayorship. And while I was sitting in the leadership in the city, I decided to run for the State Board of Equalization, which I got elected to in 2018. The first Latino, and I'm one of your constitutional officers representing 10 million people in the state of California. And as I was winding down, because all the constitutional officers, we term out after 8 years. And as I was winding down, I realized that the last 2 treasurers we've had have come out of my office. Fiona Ma, who's currently in the treasurer's role, was on the Board of Equalization. And then before her, you had John Chung. And as you get in the leadership, when I was part of the leadership of the Board of Equalization as the chair, you also get to sit on the franchise tax board. So those 2 experiences really, and I'm the only one running with that experience, gave me the platform to look at the treasurer's race. And as I was looking at the treasurer's race, it sits on several commissions and committees. Probably the 2 most powerful ones are the 2 pension funds, CalPERS and CalSTRS. Between those 2, it's almost $1 trillion. And then I realized we're investing less than 2% of that in California. Yet California is the 4th largest economy in the world. So I think we need to do a better job. And I think that would go a long ways in trying to make California affordable again. So that's kind of my goal moving forward, and looking forward to having a discussion about that with your membership. And I was an educator before too. I think I was listening to the conversation. I started in education as a teacher first before I got into politics. Thank you.
Thanks. And just wanted to call out, did Senator Caballero or anyone from her staff join?
I haven't seen her.
Okay.
So if anybody's here on behalf, let me know.
Okay, then Tony, we will ask you our one question. The state treasurer plays a key role in managing California's borrowing and investments. How would you approach debt and reserves during a budget shortfall, and what trade-offs would you prioritize?
Great question. I kind of touched on it. The treasurer sits on several, like I said, commissions and committees, but the 2 most powerful are the 2 pension funds, CalPERS and CalSTRS. CalPERS is up to $550 billion. CalSTRS, I believe, is the largest educational pension fund in the world at $375 billion. Combined, it's almost $1 trillion. We invest less than 2% of that in California. My goal is to double that to at least 4%. Imagine if we doubled it an additional 2%. An additional 2% of $1 trillion is $16 billion. Imagine what we could do with that on the affordable housing front, helping our educational institutions that are underfunded, and then also helping to bring down the healthcare costs in the state of California. So those are the ones I'm looking to target. And to touch a little bit more on your specific question, is that I think we need to do a better job of investing in California. We're not, and I just don't understand that. California being the fourth largest economy in the world, it cannot be a bad investment to invest in California. And at the end of the day, some people are saying, well, you need to really be careful that you're protecting those two pension funds, because obviously the retirees depend on those returns, the investments on those returns. And even if we get a little bit less, I think the fact that we're helping on the affordable housing front and the educational shortfall, I think would go a long ways. I think it would balance each other's out, because at the end of the day, it's all about balancing the budget, the overall budget.
Great, thank you. And actually, I'm going to call an audible real quick. And if it's okay, turn it over to one of our members, Nelson Tam, who is also a member of one of the California Democratic Party caucuses, to ask a quick question.
Yeah, hey, good evening, everyone. Tony, thank you so much. We met at the Poverty Council at the DNC in December. I was just curious right now, it seems like California is kind of in this forever vexing cycle where we have to deal with really serious cyclical swings in revenue because, well, 60% of our revenue comes from the top 5% of incomes, right? And I've kind of been exploring this issue like on the national level, and I was wondering, what do you think the outlook would be if we start up this next gubernatorial administration starting to institute a sovereign wealth fund, independent of CalSTRS and CalPERS? Because, I mean, as you know, CalPERS in recent years, they've made quite a few blunders in their private equity investments. And I'm speaking as a former Wall Street worker, who's worked 10 years in equity research. I'm just curious, what do you think would be the most feasible if we were to model a sovereign wealth fund, such as they have in Colorado and Wisconsin right now?
I think we need to explore it. I think one of the problems as I'm looking at the history of the past treasurers, it's sad to say we keep electing treasurers that are using this as a stepping stone for higher office. So at the end of the day, I don't think they're really focused on what they really should be in terms of, one, investing in California. My goal, at this age and this stage of my life, this is it. This is where I'm going to end up as a treasurer. I'm not looking to run for higher office, and this is not a stepping stone for me. So at the end of the day, I know I'm going to probably upset some folks, especially in the financial world, but I think we need to be very creative. And part of it, I think, is what I said earlier, is to begin to invest in California. We're not doing a good job of that. And to address a little bit more specific to your issue, I think we need to look at being more creative and leveraging the pension funds locally. I had a real good conversation with the tribes. Paula, one of the largest ones down in San Diego, is on board with me because I told them that I have no problem investing, moving some of the pension funds that we are currently investing out of state and out of the country locally with some of the tribes. They would love to be able to leverage their housing dollars, for example, to build more housing on the reservation. And I think we should also be doing that with the nonprofits that are trying to build true affordable housing, whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit, to leverage their dollars to build more housing. Every year we keep saying we're going to build more housing, but every year we're falling further and further behind. We're not even meeting the minimum requirement on the housing front. So, the shortage is only growing. The shortage of affordable housing is growing, but the demand is going higher and higher every year. And I think we just need to do a better job, and we're not doing that.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you, Tony Vazquez, for joining us, Campaign for State Treasurer. You have a good rest of your evening.
Appreciate it. Would love to have your support.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up the candidates forum portion of tonight's agenda. I'm now going to turn it over to two of our very esteemed members. Not that all of our members aren't esteemed. Wyeth McAdam Edgelow and Nick Arnett to talk about a resolution that we're hoping to put on the endorsement ballot. Actually, let me back up really quick. Tomorrow, for eligible members, we're going to be emailing you a digital ballot to vote on who you want the club to endorse ahead of the primary. That is going to include all the statewide offices. So I know we didn't cover, we didn't have any governor's candidates, but we're going to talk about that after the resolution. And then secondly, it will include candidates who did not participate in the endorsement forum today. But if you check our latest email, we've posted some of the forums from the convention. So you can watch those to get more information about some of the candidates who couldn't be here today. All right, and with that, I am going to turn it over to Wyeth and Nick.
Thank you, Meredith. And Meredith, can you remind me what time is this meeting ending?
You mean not until we're done?
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the chance to talk with all of you. The City of Alameda Democratic Board is bringing forward this resolution to oppose funding for the war in Iran for our members to consider. As a member of this club, we have a voice that can be amplified by using this resolution process. And before we begin talking substantively about the resolution, which Nick is going to do, I just wanted to briefly share why we're bringing this forward as a resolution. As Congress is considering these kinds of decisions, local Democratic clubs like ours have an opportunity to participate by sharing our perspective in a thoughtful and constructive way, and also to use it as a tool to broaden our tent of the Democratic Party and encourage those who are sitting on the couch to join us and to effectuate real change that will better the lives of everyone. So this resolution was written to be pretty clear, pretty adaptable, so that other clubs or other people, if they find it helpful, could use it. And so it focuses on shared concerns about transparency in decision-making on the federal level, accountability, and also to signal that the impact of these decisions to fund wars and not address the everyday costs for working families is problematic from our perspective. And so our board unanimously at our last board meeting voted to endorse this resolution. And now we're coming to you as members. And our hope is to direct the federal conversation in a way that reflects our community's values and to encourage fellow Democrats and independents to join us. So I'm really excited about it. If it passes, which I'm sure it will, Nick and I are going to work on sharing out the model resolution with every single city Democratic club in the state of California, and also kind of up the chain in the Democratic Party. So Nick, when you're ready, we're ready for you to talk about what it's all about.
Yeah, and I provided a link in case you weren't following the chat, the exact verbiage, but exact verbiage has a lot of whereas and stuff, so it's not the easiest to read. So I'll give you a basic summary of what it is. And essentially it says, as Congress considers additional large-scale war funding, many of us are thinking not only about the broader implications, but also about the impact here at home, particularly affordability. And the war has already contributed to rising gas prices, as I'm sure most of you have already seen, and an increased cost in everyday goods. So this resolution is intentionally simple. It urges Democrat members of Congress to exercise oversight avoid open-ended appropriations, and consider the economic impact on working families. It also encourages our members and community to engage thoughtfully with their elected representatives. Major federal decisions should be transparent, accountable, and mindful of how they affect people's daily lives. So we're hoping that on behalf of the Democratic Club, we ask you to help support it with us. And I think Meredith too, because she's the one who brought it to, or not Meredith, Wyeth, because she's the one who brought this to us. And I think it's really important right now as we see everything that's happening.
Thank you so much, Nick. And I just want to say, like, you know, neighbor to neighbor, it's a lot that's going on. And the war is really upsetting. And this is one way to channel your frustration in a constructive way. And so we really are excited to encourage you to vote to support the resolution, which Meredith, bless her, will be sharing out with you, as she said, tomorrow. So thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Nick or Wyeth? Okay, great. All right, then if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.